how am I going to pull... Well, obviously I'm not going to care. Okay, so that slots into that, that slots into that, that slots into that, and we have a little bit of boohoo. That's a little bit of hull over. Okay, so, and now we're gonna put, first of all, can I get a road in there? Yes, I can. Good. Eventually, what I'm going to probably be doing is completely abandoning... I'm probably going to rip all of this up, essentially, in the course of things, because land wells, while logistically superior to... it's complicated. Why is everything complicated? I will show you. Okay.
Welcome. My name is Salman David. I am the spokesperson for the Independent Science Council at SAAT, the leading international forum for research and science. We have been observing your activities in this sector with great curiosity. And if you will permit me this personal remark, we are fascinated by your potential. Under the direction of its presiding artificial intelligence father, the SAAT Ethics Council has concluded that the risk involved in granting you access to our latest high-tech procedures is acceptable, a decision which I wholeheartedly endorse. If you so wish, you can have immediate access to our underwater technologies for deep-sea use. They will very quickly solve your raw material shortages.
Well, not very quickly, but eventually they will.
You a license to establish laboratories and academies and allow you access to our aircraft construction plans.
Yay!
I imagine you must be speechless, and you get all this for just a small contribution towards the continuation of our research. Fantastic, isn't it? Join us. Become a member of SAAT.
Access rights to tech buildings received. Confirmation necessary at the yard.
Yes. And this...
Access to tech buildings now possible.
introduces the sub-faction to the game, for there are two major factions. Yeah, there are two major factions to this game. There are the tycoons and the ecos. There's also a sub-faction called the techs, and the techs are truly what allow amazing things to happen. In fact, techs are perhaps the most important class, the most important thing to me right now because of the importance. God, 8 food factories are still not enough to supply the needs of my people. That is amazing to me. Anyhow, I was going to do something, and my mind is blanking on what it was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One advantage I will say is one of the bigger advantages to actually having techs around is that they give you access to 1, 2, 3, 4. They give you access to an extremely 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They give you access to an extremely compact public center, which is very important actually, that you have a compact public center. 167 is providing all the booze we need so far. As the population grows, that will change over time. Okay, we're obviously not going to be able to do that. Anyway, I'm going to basically switch out back over that, and I'm going to bid you guys a good night because I am going to go to sleep. Oh god, save game. Let's see here, backspace delta, backspace gamma, backspace epsilon. I am both sad and glad that I lost the previous epsilon, because the previous epsilon I did what I always did, which was basically to start as ecos, and you know what? That's kind of boring. That's been getting boring for me. This tycoon start though, it's really interesting.
These instructions come directly from
Okay. We'll put that off for later. Right now though, I want you to see something really cool about Anno 2070. These are world statistics. And by world statistics, I mean truly worldwide statistics. This is basically all of the saved as well as ongoing progress of everyone who is playing and has ever played this game. In the early months, weeks of this game, okay, before people who were even playing it really knew what the hell they were doing, this was like -30. The community, as you can tell, has actually gotten more experienced and more matured, and has actually gotten a positive global eco-balance. Technically speaking, thanks to the efforts of players, we are reclaiming the planet. We are improving things for everyone. And that's amazing. I will say this though, politics and population have never really changed all that much, neither has production. With the possible exception that in the early days, fish made up 32% of all the goods created globally, followed by coal, which was maybe 4%, and everything else was in like really low, like coal was always at about like 8%, but fish was like 32%. Everybody was making so much fucking fish in the early days. It was insane. Oh man. And coal was at like 8%, and everything else was in like 4 to 1%. It was silly. As you can see, people have been getting a hell of a lot better at it, and fish surpluses aren't quite what they were anymore. I suppose people were making so much fish in the early days because you get unlimited amounts of it, and it's immediately available for trade, which makes sense, except that fish is an extremely cheap resource and you don't get a whole lot of money for actually exporting it. But again, it's free, it's immediately available, and it can get you money. Let's see here. Power has never really changed all that much, except that it's always basically been kind of like this along this tier 6 system, except that in the early days, solar power actually outnumbered nuclear power plants. in terms of raw power. And for a while, actually, the thermal power station was at number 3. It's been weird, but now that things have kind of settled down, people have known what they're doing. Coal provides most of the power, with offshore wind parks being a close second, wind parks being a third, because wind parks are basic, they're cheap to make, and they produce a solid amount of energy for the cost. Offshore wind parks are, well, they can be clustered more, and they produce more power per unit, and they are technically more efficient to run, especially with certain upgrades. You saw in Pack Space Epsilon my vast offshore wind park farms. I think that's basically what a lot of the world has ended up doing. Coal power stations, though, outnumber it all, primarily because, well, you saw during this whole Let's Sandbox session, coal power stations vanilla generate 60 units of power. That's an amazing amount of power compared to anything. These generate 30, these generate 15. These can generate a maximum of 50, I believe. But the thing is, I have never, ever seen a thermal power station that has ever been at 100%, not even with executives. These things suck so bad. I don't even know why the hell they're in the game anymore. Or I don't. They seriously, they need to be upped. You need to be able to produce more power, because it's just stupidly. These things are big, they're really expensive, and they never reach. They just never reach 100% efficiency. So you're stuck at like 49 power all the fucking time. It is so annoying. And anyway, marine current power plants. They produce energy for undersea things, so they're basically specialist power generations. Each one produces 25 units of power, which is why I'm guessing that it's even on the freaking board, to be honest with you. But, whatever. I don't know why we don't see hydroelectric, because I would assume that a lot of players would use hydroelectric. Until I realized that hydroelectric probably makes up less than 1% of all power generated globally, because hydroelectric power plants are expensive to make. That item that you saw me use early in the Let's Sandbox, that thing is so expensive to produce. Okay, it really, really is. It's just absolutely stupid. Okay, let's look at most effective eco-balance building is the Ozone Maker Station. That's a eco executive building. It provides 100 eco at a cost of, I think, 120, and a power usage of 60, which is not that bad. It's a solid thing. It's an eco oriented eco balance building, which means that it can actually go push things above neutral eco balance, as opposed to a tycoon eco balance building, which can only bring things up to 0. Weather control stations come in at 20%, probably because weather control stations are the most basic eco-oriented eco-balance building that can actually improve conditions on the island. Deacidification station at a close 16%, at a well-deserved 16%, because these things are tycoon buildings. They can repair 90 points worth of damage to the surrounding ecosystem at 60 points of power, and they're actually more efficient than weather control stations. I will say that much. Waste compactors. Everybody who's smart uses waste compactors, but the thing is, waste compactors are like thermal power stations. They need to be around people, so that inherently limits the amount, that inherently limits their usefulness. Okay, they can only be placed in specific areas. but waste compactors are extremely cheap to make. They're compact, and they provide 50, and the vanilla version provides 50 points of eco-balance, and this is actually one of the few eco-balance buildings that can actually have its eco-balance rating enhanced with upgrades. So it can be 50 or more depending on arc upgrades, which is why anybody who's smart uses these things. They're really nice. Monitoring stations coming in at number 10. I suppose people like to use monitoring stations to put on farming, to put onto their farming related islands. Basically, no real population centers. I don't want to mine there. I just want to grow lots of crops efficiently to supply my greater island empire. So I'm going to put down a whole bunch of monitoring stations. Boom, 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 boom. I personally don't like monitoring stations, even though they are very good at what they do. They provide 40 eco-balance. They have the ability to provide eco-balance beyond 0. They are relatively energy and cost efficient because I don't use them that much. I don't know the actual values off the top of my head. I'm sorry. But they provide 40 eco-balance, can bring it above 0. But the thing is, why I don't like them all that much, they require a mining site. They require you to actually cap off the ability to actually mine on your island. And I'm sorry, mining sites are rare, and you know what, my populations are so incredibly huge that they actually usually need the goods produced by mines. So yeah. Worst environmental pollution, coal power stations. Considering that coal is the primary source of power, coal power stations being the worst polluters, and with their attending rotary excavators, that does not surprise me in the slightest. In fact, that this is directionally proportional to this doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Basalt crushers, again, doesn't really surprise me at all. Because basalt crushers, you saw during the Let's Sandbox, those rotary basalt crushers, they're used to make building modules, which make up a full 3. Wow, which make up a full 3%. Wow, I did not know that. Huh. Of all world goods. And the thing is, they actually damaged eco balance by 4 per unit. No, they damage it by 2. My throat is cracking because I've been talking for so long. Okay, final statistic. Population by level of civilization. This really surprises me that employees still outnumber engineers. In a well-balanced island chain, or I should say in a well-run island chain, engineers should outnumber employees, while executives should outnumber engineers. So that engineers don't outnumber tycoon, or don't just easily outnumber employees. It really confuses me. I mean, I can understand why executives are so rare, because executives are the top economic tier, and I can understand why researchers are the top economic tier, and I can understand why researchers vastly outnumber lab assistants in terms of their global percentage population, because researcher apartments hold 40 people, while lab assistant domiciles only hold 8. But that engineer things don't outnumber the employees. It just baffles me. Ah, well, people. As for politics, these have remained pretty much unchanged since the early days. Everybody likes Eden Initiative a lot. Most elected factions at the start of game. This is a game that admittedly attracts people that believe in climate change. So, you know. So, there's always going to be the skewing parts, and, they can deny the science. The people who don't believe in climate change can deny the science all they want. That's all I'm going to say about it. But you know what? Science doesn't care. And with that happy note, and a whole lot of stats for you number files out there, I bid you a good night.